How do you know what is best to do during this time with this coronavirus epidemic? My name is LaMonte Wilcox, and I'm a neuro mental health specialist, and I help and have helped actually over 200 people very quickly make a shift in their understanding of how their brain works in such a way that empowers them to break patterns and to create new reward systems in their brain so that they get out of the patterns that they've been stuck in. And I've helped many people from all different ranges of levels of suffering and struggle and difficulty. And because of this time, in this time where this coronavirus is becoming an epidemic and where it creates so much anxiety and fear and frustration in our lives, I wanted to see if I could share and use some of the things that I sit down with people to help them walk through and understand something. And usually I'll sit for 6 or 7 and 8+ hours with them, helping their brain really take in these concepts, using the latest research around neuroscience to understand better what's going on in our system. And I wanted to make this video, and I haven't done anything like this before, really. I've just kind of been, word of mouth has been how I've helped most everyone. I haven't really done much to promote or to go online, but this is something I really want to get to the world, to anyone who can use its help, because so many of us are suffering in ways that really keep us from making good decisions, that really keep us from seeing things in a way that is empowering and that gives us the ability to influence others and to help this epidemic to have the least amount of death and misery that we need to. Because I mean, how many of us really suffer with these debilitating thought processes that really hold us back? And the one thing that I want to point out is that so many of us who don't feel like that's going on in our lives, that we're not having processes that hold us back, well, studies say that we do. It's actually a pretty constant in our lives. The foundational way of thinking that comes from our life experience and our childhood, that happens when we really don't have a choice in the matter, that starts to play out in our lives, and it really gets triggered and pulled up when we come up to events that are unexpected and often seen as very traumatic or that starts to really terrorize us in our lives. And so I want to talk through just a little bit of that. I don't have 7 or 8 hours to do with this. I work with people on a daily basis on one-on-one, and sometimes in groups, and I'm getting to help a lot of people. So it's taken a bit for me to take away from that and give some time to give to you. And I appreciate, and I think if you maybe consider just giving a little bit of your time and attention, which is your most valuable asset right now, that this might be something that the things that you see on this board might change your life and really help you shift in a way that breaks your patterns. And the feedback I get from people that I help is tremendous, and how much it changes their lives and gives them a different vision of this world, but ultimately helps them to use their brain in a way that helps them get to the things that they truly want and to understand the things that they truly want. Because this is a world right now where we're getting so many mixed messages and trying to understand, and people giving advice, professionals that are really good to give advice in different ways, and we really need to use the guiding force that's built into us to understand and know what we can do, what the best thing that we can possibly do is. And so I want to share a little bit about what I use to kind of help, and this is an unedited version, so I apologize for any pauses or things that might distract, but I just need to get this done and get it out. And so I'm hoping that this moment you'll forgive me a little bit if I stumble a little bit in what I'm saying, but I hope you can feel the passion that I have and the love that I have for you and for whoever listens to this, and how much I can help, because this has just lit up my life and changed me and my family and the people that I've been able to help in such a huge way that I hope that in part touches you and helps you to shift a little bit, and maybe I hope it resonates in a way that really gets to the way your brain works, so that you can be empowered to take over some of that. So I want to just start out with some basic concepts that we've really quite recently discovered in neurology and with our research that has really we have to give credit to the US of A and many other countries who've decided that this was really something to start putting some research into and to put some data out to discover the data that we need to help us. Because in the US, we started a thing called the Brain Initiative. Many other countries started something similar. Back when Obama was president, he signed a bill to start giving out millions, literally hundreds of millions of dollars to anyone who is researching and learning about the brain. The universities and the colleges and those who had the desire to research and to learn about the brain have really been able to get massive amounts of funding. And we've since put over $950 million into this research, and there is a massive amount to gain and to learn from that's coming in from all that research. And universities and colleges and labs have really good fMRIs and EEGs and lots of equipment that helps read the brain and see what's happening during our experiences. And it's really shifted and changed, and it's beginning to shift and change, and it takes a while for that data to get in there. And so I want to go over some of those basics. The foundational way of thinking that we have to use as we go through life and we make decisions, and ultimately our brain is trying to find reward because it runs off of a reward system. The electrical currents through our neurology in our brain, they are searching to find a reward. The neurons are searching to find that reward. And there's some really recent research and studies and discoveries that help us to understand this at a deeper level. But the basic concept is that we have this foundational way of thinking that has been created through a process of growth and learning in our childhood and even as we were babies and even in the womb, where our neurons were developing, and those arms of those neurons where they connect, the dendrites they call them, they were actually a lot shorter and there were less of them. And so the way they connected didn't really give us the ability to really contemplate and calculate and revisit and understand our thoughts and our beliefs. Until about the age 7, we don't really have much clarity there and ability to look back and analyze our thoughts and our thinking. And we, along with not really being able to see a very clear line between our imagination and reality. So those two things are a specific neurological scientific thing that we can see in our neurons. And because of that, we start to create this foundational way of thinking that we then use to process, translate, and give meaning to this world. And that has a huge effect on what our mind does and how we respond, and the chemical responses, the biochemical and the neurological and electrical responses that we have to our experience are affected by this processing, this foundational processing that we have. And so I want to just kind of visit a few concepts and ideas that neuroscience has uncovered in the last just few years, actually. And I want to just draw just an image of a very primitive image of what a neuron looks like, and what a neural process or a electrical current going from one to the other kind of looks like. And so, and bring up some discoveries that we've had that have an impact on our understanding that gives us power to do something. And to achieve what we really want, to really see and have clarity around what we really want to experience and to get the results that we want in this world. So an electrical current will come through, and what these are called dendrites, where they connect is what's called a synapse. And the electrical current, as it comes down one line and it goes to the center of this main core where our mitochondria and a bunch of other processes are happening, it comes through and then it goes on and passes, and then it has to jump this synapse. And then it moves on to the next one, it goes to the next. And then where it's connected here, there's a space that it has to jump, and it goes across like that. And it continues on based off of some things that we've recently learned. We used to think that signal would pass through based off of the health and the factors that were on the dendrites, the shell and different things. But we're starting to learn something different that is really impactful to us to understand. And that is that this core center of our neuron actually is more like a microprocessor than a passive cell. We used to think this was a passive cell, and that it was related, where this passed through and where it went was based off of other things. But now we're starting to understand that this actually stores data. It has memory, and that memory is has a decision-making process. And as the way that some neuroscience puts it, that this cell only fires if it believes that that signal will lead to an action that will then create a reward. And the reward in the system actually happens at this area where they connect. That is the synapse. And the synapse is where our chemicals are released that give us feelings. And what those feelings are a reward system. And so the feelings that we have, everything that we do is ultimately to get to a feeling. And you can test this out. You can ask yourself, you can think about something that you've done and ask yourself, why did I do that? And if you continue to ask yourself, and why did I do that? And why does that matter? And why does that matter? And why does that matter? Eventually, you'll get to a feeling. Everything that you do is to lead to a feeling. And this synapse is where that feeling happens. And what chemicals are released, what are called neurotransmitters, will create the feeling. And it'll also affect if that signal passes through. And so these little microprocessors are much more important than we used to think, because there's a bunch of things going on here. We used to look at the whole brain and see how the whole brain was acting, but on a cellular level, we're realizing that these little microprocessors are making decisions. And those decisions are based off of perception, what they believe, what their memory is, and what they feel, what they think, what they are making decisions about where this signal is going to go. And this signal passing through is a thought or a belief. And that thought or belief creates the chemical changes depending on where it goes and what area of the brain and which neurons and what their nature is will affect how we feel, which is our reward system. And so depending on what our reward system is, we can get caught in patterns where we play those patterns over and over and over. And we get stuck in doing something that doesn't lead to what we want because our subconscious is playing out these patterns. And here's one of the things that has a major effect on how we make these decisions and how we get to those rewards, and because our belief and the meaning we give things is what creates the reward. For example, if you get up in the morning and you open your windows and you see that it's a cloudy day, what is your response to that? How many different responses are there to that depending on the person and their maps of how they see this world? Some people might get up and say, well, a cloudy day means, oh man, we're not going to get sun. I'm going to feel sad. It's not going to feel good. And maybe it's going to start snowing. Or maybe there's going to be a shift in our weather that I don't want. And that's going to take away from me. And another person might wake up and say, well, those clouds mean that we're going to get the moisture we need. And because of this, and this, and their reasoning or their maps tell them that it's a good thing and it feels good. So we have this thing inside us that tells us that makes us feel good about things or feel not good about them, trying to get away or trying to move towards something. And that is based off of a general feeling that our brain feels and then changes what this electrical current is. Because this current, anytime there's an electrical current, then there is a wavelength to that current. And that wavelength can be measured in frequency. And so we have different frequencies based off of the feelings that we have. And it can be a perpetual process that we get stuck in. And when we have a repetitive process that leads us to things that we don't want or creates a collateral damage in our lives and hurts other people or does things we don't want, but we keep doing it, that's a perpetual pattern that we're stuck in a part of our brain that has certain tendencies and runs off certain vibrations, or in other words, frequencies. And we can talk about that, and it's actually quite apparent in certain areas of our lives in certain ways that our body even responds to those frequencies or to those vibrations. And so our body and our brain is responding. And so if I asked you if there was someone, if you feel really depressed, or you could see someone who was very, very depressed and it was being expressed through their body, and they're responding to that expression or that feeling, I could ask you what they look like and what you perceive in that, and you could tell me. For example, would they have their eyes up or down typically if they were feeling depressed and expressing that through their body? Their eyes would be down, right? Would their chin be up or down? Would their shoulders be forward or back? Would they be speaking quickly or slowly? Would they be using a high frequency with their words, or would they be using a low frequency? Talking in low tones or high tones? It's quite interesting because those things all represent these frequencies. The low frequencies put us in a low state, and that's why our voice drops to some extent when we're speaking and we're expressing ourselves with that depressed feeling. And so these frequencies very much affect the development, the connectivity, and the neuro and biological responses and chemical responses to our body. And so this is a key point that I want to come to, is that if you're having thought processes and you're listening to things and you're doing things and you're focusing on areas of your life that get you to a low frequency, in other words, they get you to a place where you feel worried or distraught or depressed or upset or angry or any of those things, then your cells of your brain will respond to that. And the way that they'll act will not help you break old patterns. If you want to figure out how to do something, that means there needs to be a change. Wanting to know how to do something or solve a problem is the same thing as asking for a change. And when these cells of your brain are at a low frequency, they get stuck. They don't want change. They don't want to let go of these these other dendrites and let go of these other neurons and create new ones. They want to stay where they are. And this, by the way, is called neuroplasticity, the ability for our brain to change, to let go of the connectivity and to let go of the beliefs and the reward systems and create new ones. And literally, it helps us move to different areas of our brain when we think differently, when we're on a different frequency. When we're on a different frequency, the part of our brain that participates, when we're on a high frequency, we have more access to our subconscious. Our subconscious opens up more to change. And this allows us to discover and to see. For example, if you've ever been in a really difficult situation where you're very stressed, maybe you see a traumatic event about to happen or something like that, you go into this fight or flight mode. The fight or flight mode is a low frequency. The parts of our brain that turn on are at a low frequency, and they're using specific neurons and neurotransmitters that will intensify that situation. And notice that when we do that, we become very hyper-focused. We hone in. In other words, a lot of our brain turns off and we hyper up certain areas of our brain to work with that specific situation, trying to solve the problem. And when we do that, we often go too far and we shut down too much of our brain. As a matter of fact, the majority of the time, it doesn't benefit us to get so hyper-focused. Notice also that it turns on this level of urgency that pushes on us, this urgency to get it done. If you get into an argument, notice that you start to get more and more worked up. You start to raise your voice. You want it solved now because of that urgency that comes. But that oftentimes, most of the time, doesn't serve us. As a matter of fact, if you think about the times where you feel this fight or flight kick in, you'll notice that you hone in. It's just like any, and by the way, any repetitive process, whether it's a mental illness or it's an addiction, they look the same. It's a repetitive process that doesn't lead to what we truly want. It's a repetitive thought process that doesn't help us lead to what we want. And so when our brain gets stuck in those patterns, we run off this frequency, we turn off parts of our brain, we put on blinders. And notice that if you put the blinders on, you can't see the big picture. And you start to focus typically on things that you can't do or can't have, and it makes you more panicked. It drives you deeper into that hyper-focus. And notice that you do things in the moment. You're so focused on that one way to meet that need, that one way to do it, that you don't notice that you're creating collateral damage all along. You're hurting other people. You're doing things and achieving things you don't want to achieve. They're very hurtful or counterproductive to what you truly want, because those things are in. And during this stage of the state of the world right now that we're in, this is possibly happening significantly more than what could be helpful. As a matter of fact, the statistics show that we often aren't looking at this with a clear mind, because the media, I'm afraid, tries to polarize things. That's how they get your attention. They want you to be watching, and they want you to spend more time watching their channel and their words, and they want you to follow them. That's what their goal is. And so they tend to sensationalize and polarize these things because we get stupid. I mean, I hate to say it so bluntly, but we do. We get dumb. We get so distracted by a headline, and we're in the middle of something very important to us that helps us get our goals but this headline turns on. We pick up our phone to do one thing, and an hour later, we're like, why did I pick up my phone? What am I doing? You're all over the place because of all these distractions and all these people trying to grab your attention. It happened to me just recently. I went on my computer. I had 5 really important things to do, and a half hour later, I'm like, what am I doing? I got distracted by some headlines and some other things, and yeah, they grabbed my attention. Your attention, by the way, is the most valuable thing you have. It's the thing that you really would benefit to fight for. Stay focused on the things that really matter to you. And this is merely a distraction. The concept of being distracted and being very hyper-focused is a distraction to the things that you truly want, and really keeps you from thinking straight. And the thing that I'll mention is that when we start to get in that frustrated, angry, or upset, or depressed, or any of those emotions that we have, we send a vibration to these that alter their decision-making process, and ultimately lead us to a place where we can't see things potentially right in front of us. Have you ever had a time, I mean, think about it, have you ever had a time where you're just really frustrated and then you just start making poor decisions, and there are things right in front of you, and other people are trying to point it out to you, like, look, the answer's right here, it's right in front of you. But no, you can't see it because you're so caught up in these patterns that are your childhood patterns that, again, going back to that, you didn't choose. And the choices you're making today are very much based off of that primal mind that was created in your childhood. And so what I like to do is help people see that at a deeper level, to really go into a place in your head where you can see more clearly what's going on, so that you can actually counter it. You can use your conscious mind to start changing these patterns, moving where you're using your brain to get to the results and the conclusions that you truly want, to use that guiding force inside you that makes you feel, to help you understand what you can do in these moments and in these times. And as this coronavirus spreads, we're gonna have new experiences, we're gonna have changes. And if we fear that, and fear drives us, and that idea that there's a potential threat coming, that alters our thinking and keeps us from getting what we truly want and really making good decisions and really being able to serve and help those who might be suffering, or those who might be challenged by this at a deeper level, that maybe their life is on the line, because we know lives are being lost. And as long as us being able to use our brain to really get to the place that we want to be, that we can really truly help, is going to be the difference between how many deaths we see, and how much suffering we see, and how much pain there is, to how much learning and how much we gain, and how many shifts and movements and change that we use to better ourselves and our lives. And that is going to be merely about how we use our mind. And I don't know about you, but I believe this is the one thing we take with us after we leave this existence. That we take these experiences and this knowledge and these memories and what we gain. This is what I call our sacred ground that we get to have. If you believe in a life after this one, then it must be carrying something with it that means something. And this, I believe, is that mechanism. And this is something that we can have a difference. We can make a difference with our perspectives and how we see, what we focus on, and what we choose to give meaning to things. I've literally used this to make some of the most bizarre changes in my life that that sound crazy, and I did them to solidify my belief in this thing. One of them was I took the foods that turned my stomach, the things that literally made me throw up, and I shifted the associations I make to those things, the meaning they have to me, and I changed them at a deep neurological level. And now I love those foods. Those foods that used to make me gag and throw up, I now value and love. And the way that we value things will change how we gain from them. If we're always trying to get away from things, we're always trying to escape. And this world, by the way, and this society and technology has given us hundreds of new, easy, simple, quick, and easily accessible ways to escape our experience, instead of going through the processes that we need to shift and to change. And there's so many things I've learned by helping people and so many patterns. And I truly hope that this has helped you shift just a little. And if it's stressing you out more and giving you more anxiety because of your worry, then now what should you think? What can you think about that might help you get out of that panic? By understanding what parts of what I shared today can help you see differently and be open to new ideas in your brain, that your answers are in your brain. By being able to look at problems not as problems, but to see them as ultimately necessary ways to solve, or to, I should say, instead of looking at them as problems, we can see them as solutions. How is this thing that you're seeing as a problem now actually a solution? Because one of the mistakes that we make in our brain is that when we feel pain and we have emotions we don't want, we think that it's coming from the external world and other people. But what's really happening is in our brain. And every time we have a problem or we feel pain or emotions that we don't want, that's a message to us to change something up here, not in the world. It's not about fixing the world so it all aligns so we can feel good. It's about changing our brain so it aligns so that we can feel good, because feeling good is what helps our neurons at the highest level to perform at their highest level. There's research now that shows that even our DNA strands, when we work at low frequencies and we feel frustrated, angry, upset, that our DNA strands actually tighten up, and when they're tight, they can't express themselves. And our cells actually override our DNA, causing all kinds of havoc and problems. As a matter of fact, if you look at cells that are deformed or having problem like cancer cells, they actually run on a lower frequency, a distorted frequency that's actually not consistent. And so this stuff can change everything. It can change the way you see this world, you perceive this world, and therefore how you process. And because it changes the way you process, you see differently. And because you see differently, you get answers. This is the guiding force that's built into us. And by using what we have control over, which is our beliefs, our thoughts, our ideas, the meaning that we give things, so that when we see things, we come out with a positive, high-frequency vibration that ultimately changes what parts of our brain participate in a decision-making process. Our decisions will reach a higher level of effectiveness and efficiency. Notice that a high frequency moves faster. And ultimately, if doing this helps you come to solutions faster, helps you move faster to get to the things that you want in life. I've only been doing this for a couple of years, and my life has completely changed. And all the things that used to worry me and concern me, I got through them in my head, and now we've created things twice. It starts in our head, and what we look for, we find. And what we create in our mind ahead of time, we end up with. And if we're constantly looking back and seeing all our problems and how things make us feel, we'll get caught in that way of thinking, and that will continue to drive us. If we create a vision moving forward of the things that we want and how we truly want to help people and serve people and feel and grow and learn, and we create a good vision around that, and we constantly stay focused on that at this high frequency, those will be the things that we'll start to find and happen in our lives. We will program a part of our brain that has neurons that are very capable of helping us decide where we focus. It's called our reticular activating system, our RAS. We can program that by choosing what we focus on, by choosing what things mean to us, and ultimately taking over our experience. So we can have joy and happiness in all the things that we're experiencing, no matter what people are doing to us. And notice how empowering that feels. Notice how incredible that would be to totally have a preset response that you want to have, and no matter what anybody does to you, you respond that way. And I'm guessing most of you want to express love, that matters to you, that you want to feel love no matter what people are doing to you, so that you can remove the conditions you have on your love, that no matter how they treat you and how they act to you, you respond with love. That's the true removal of conditions on our love. And the best feeling in this world is to feel that someone believes in you and has no conditions on how they love you. And that no matter how you act, it doesn't affect them in a negative way because they don't rely on the conditions they have on your love. And we can come together as a country and as a world and give that full unconditional love by letting go of the low frequencies and the fears and the threat that we feel. And we can respond with love in every situation. Because how much are you influenced when someone comes to you and believes in you and lifts you up and trusts in you, and they don't rely on what you're doing for how they feel? Because you feel free when they do that, because they free you of driving their life. And notice how it feels. And with that feeling, what do you want to do? You want to lift others and encourage others. And not only that, but you want to listen what they have to say. You want to be influenced by those people. So if you want to influence other people, you can learn to run on this frequency of love and kindness and acceptance, and totally being in a place where the things other people do don't affect you in a negative way, because that puts a weight on their shoulder. We do this as parents so much. We put so much weight on them because we change the way we feel based off of how they act and respond. And ultimately, most of us are just trying to feel good about ourselves and our parenting. And which is, I'm sorry, but it's kind of a selfish thing we're stuck in. So let's let that go. Show the kids that we can have faith that this is all for a purpose. That everything that happens, even the mistakes they make and the mistakes you make, are here for a purpose. And that's to teach us something, to look at our problems and see them as solutions and seek for that solution. Because seek and ye shall find. What you look for, you will see. And if you have this idea, this concept that everything is a solution, that's what you'll find. You'll find a solution in all the things that you currently see as problems. And you'll realize that all of your beliefs are actually choices. And you might have made those choices before you had the awareness of your consciousness, before you had the ability to analyze what you're doing. And it's probably still playing out from your childhood. This is so exciting. It's so fun. Every step that you take to get there is so rewarding. And that will interrupt this reward system. And it will take you to a new place of power.